Manx Radio's Update with Beth Espey.
Fastamai, good evening and welcome to Update, where we take you through the main news stories of the day. Lots to come before 5:30, including hearing from the former Chief Minister Howard Quayle. He's been giving evidence at a Tynwald committee this afternoon. Also, with a couple of days left before the consultation on the proposed new healthcare levy closes, Treasury says public feedback is vital. We'll also hear from the TT rider Peter Hickman, who gives us an update on his recovery after a crash during this year's qualifying. And there's also some lovely news about the people awarded in the King's Birthday Honours and some great news from Peel Cathedral as well. All that plus the weather, the traffic and the travel. And if you'd like to get in touch, you can text the studio. It's 166 177 or email studio@manxradio.com. Well, just after 5 then, let's join Siobhan for a roundup of the main news headlines. Fastamai.
The Infrastructure Minister is set to host a series of drop-in sessions for Douglas and Onchan residents to discuss changes to residential speed limits. Michelle Haywood will be available for 2 sessions at the Sea Terminal on the 20th and the 25th of June. The island's blood transfusion service is said to be progressing towards compliance with blood safety and quality regulations. An external audit of the service has recorded 23 items in a list of deficiencies, 3 of which are considered to be major. Manx Utilities has published updates for both its Peel and Garth sewage treatment works. In Garth, the planning documentation is now nearing completion, but will not be formally submitted until July. Meanwhile, in the west of the island, progress has been good since work commenced there last month. TT competitor Peter Hickman has given an update on the extent of his injuries that he suffered in a crash at this year's event. The outright lap record holder at the races was involved in an incident at Carrow Moor during Superbike and Superstock qualifying on Friday the 30th of May.
I just want to say a massive thanks to the marshals and medics that looked after me at the time. I don't remember much about it because I was knocked out. Yeah, it was a little bit of a new experience, but these things happen, hey?
And a yellow mongoose that escaped from Currach's Wildlife Park has been spotted in the capital. BBC Isle of Man is reporting that the animal, nicknamed Jeff, disappeared from the sanctuary in Ballaugh last week, but has since been seen about 15 miles away in Douglas. Further afield, Israel's president claims Iran was proceeding dramatically towards a nuclear bomb, as he claims there was no choice but to strike the country. Iran's UK ambassador says its nuclear program is peaceful. A nursery worker has been found guilty of 21 counts of child cruelty over an 8-month period, including kicking a toddler in the face in West London. Roxana Helena Letka, who's 22, will be sentenced in September. And the Women's Super League is on course to expand to 14 teams for the 2026-27 season. The FA board still has to approve it, though. They're your headlines. News at 6.
Thank you very much indeed, Siobhan. Now the weather brought to you by Manx Glass and Glazing. It's been pretty good today, lots of sunny spells. It is going to turn a little bit cloudy this evening. Light to moderate, mainly southwest winds. They'll freshen a little bit. Maximum temperatures today have been around 17. Tomorrow there's going to be an outbreak of rain or drizzle to start the day, tending to clear later on. Sunny intervals developing, moderate to fresh south or southwest winds. They'll soon veer west or northwest and they will ease as well. Top temperatures tomorrow around 18. Sunset this evening 9:53. Sunrise tomorrow morning just before 4:45.
Manx Glass and Glazing can supply and install single, double and triple glazing. Call 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
If you run a small business or just need more room in the back, Philshaw Vehicles has the perfect van or light commercial for all your needs and can sort out any finance. Based in the Tremode Estate, view philshawvehicles.im or call 49 51 49.
A great night's sleep got even better with Zed's Bedding Store. From quality Beldorm bed linen and mattress protectors, fleece and woven throws to luxury duvets from the fine bedding company Zed's Bedding Ramsey, next to Isle of Man Bank.
SMS Trading have moved to 3 St Paul's Square, Ramsey. For flat pack to fully built, new or second-hand furniture, SMS Trading offer all-island delivery and man-in-a-van service. Call 315151 or find SMS Trading on Facebook.
At Begode Cattery, we have been caring for animals for over 50 years. As a cattery, we care for customers' cats and treat them as our own. Contact Begode Cattery on 676 947 or find Begode Cattery on Facebook.
You're listening to Update here on Manx Radio. It's coming up to 5:05. Well, the former Chief Minister Howard Quayle has told a Tynwald committee that he was unhappy with the power, or as he termed it, clout possessed by Treasury under his administration. Well, Mr Quayle was alongside another former Chief Minister, Tony Brown, giving evidence to the Constitutional and Legal Affairs and Justice Committee this afternoon.
Under the 1990 Council of Ministers laws, I think the Treasury had too much power when it came to interfering with departments and government policy. Absolutely. And you could have three members holding up and interfering with the Chief Minister, who was elected by, in my case, Tynwald, with policies agreed by Tynwald, because we had the programme for government which had been unanimously accepted by Tynwald members, and you could have Treasury members who had maybe their own personal view who could hijack government policy. So again, short of sacking the entire department, Treasury had a inordinate amount of power, and I feel changes should have been made whereby the Council of Ministers, chaired by the Chief Minister, could have more say on where some of the money was going. So had you, as a Council of Ministers, more clout with the finances, you could have said, right, we're going to use one department's allocated budget to work with another department, because we put in lots of changes. We got departments working together, but he who pays the piper calls the tune, and it would have been far more efficient to give the Council of Ministers more financial power to enable departments where they had crossover, which you did have quite often, to work for a better good. So if I'd stayed on, I would have pushed for that to have been changed.
That's the former Chief Minister Howard Quayle talking to the Constitutional and Legal Affairs and Justice Committee this afternoon. I mentioned Tony Brown was there as well. We'll be hearing from him on Breakfast tomorrow morning. Now, Manx Utilities has published updates for both its Peel and Garth sewage treatment works. In Garth, the planning documentation is now nearing completion, but it won't be formally submitted until next month, as Siobhan Fletcher reports.
The authority says a scoping exercise highlighted some additional studies required, which are now finalised for inclusion within the planning application. However, ahead of submission, the MUA team will be contacting residents and landowners who will be directly impacted by the proposed works with further details, and will extend an offer to meet in person to talk through the plans and answer any questions they may have. It means the formal submission of the planning application will not be made until July. However, the authority says this will rightly ensure local engagement has been completed and give the best chance of a successful and expedient outcome. Meanwhile, in the west of the island, progress has been good since works commenced last month. The majority of the Peel site has had the topsoil removed, and works are ongoing to form the access road. The overhead lines that cross the site are also being diverted. Manx Utilities says whilst the planned contract completion date of the whole works is spring 2028, it's tasked its contractor to bring elements of the works online as soon as possible. As such, it's aiming to have primary treatment, screening, online next summer, with partial biological treatment ahead of summer 2027. It says all of the process works will be completed by early 2028.
Siobhan reporting there. Coming up to 5:09. Treasury says public feedback is vital as plans for a new healthcare tax move forward. Well, a consultation on the proposed NHS levy closes this Wednesday. There have been over 3,000 responses submitted so far. The Liberal Vannin Party has criticised the proposal, calling it half-baked, warning it could disproportionately impact those on lower incomes. But the Treasury Minister, Dr Alex Allinson, told Sharm that no final decisions have been made on how the levy would be implemented.
So it's been really good, very diverse as well. We've had over 3,000 submissions, lots from members of the public, which is what we wanted. We wanted to hear people's voices about how we pay for healthcare. Lots also from professional organisations. So, for instance, the Isle of Man Constabulary, their representatives fed into it as well in terms of the overall tax burden and how we would delineate that for people working on the Isle of Man. Again, just to stress, we haven't gone into this with any preconceived ideas. There are a number of proposals there, but they are actually out for consultation. And some of the whole concepts of having what's called a hypothecated tax, a separate tax, try to help meet healthcare needs is quite novel. And so what we will need to do is analyse all the responses and then develop our policies accordingly.
Now, in the last few days, we've heard from the Liberal Vannin Party saying that they think this levy would potentially put a further strain on those on lower incomes. They've suggested some other ideas, such as linking the levy to property. What are your thoughts on that?
I listened to the interview, and it was interesting because Paul Weatherall went through some of their opinions, which are very, very valid, but also seemed to say that we should put some of the costs of health and social care onto the rates. Now, this is what they have done in the United Kingdom, and they've had very, very expensive rates right across the country. We know, and I stood up in last month's Tynwald and argued that our rate system is broken, that we need fundamental reform both to the rate system and local government systems. So to add on yet more costs onto people with an unfair system doesn't seem a very good idea. But I think all of us agree that we need a properly funded NHS that's free at the point of use, goes along with the principles of our National Health Service, and it's a way of funding that, but also making sure that money just isn't thrown at things arbitrarily, that people see the benefit of that increased spending.
That's the Treasury Minister Alex Allinson talking to Sian, and you can find a link to the consultation on our website. 11 minutes past 5, Douglas Central MHK is calling for greater transparency over the Westmoreland Village development. Chris Thomas wants Tynwald to debate how planning, housing and transport policies apply to the site. He also wants any legal agreements for the scheme approved by Tynwald before being signed. He told Christian the Department of Infrastructure submitted a memo which prompted planners to change its draft approval in two significant ways.
The first one was that the affordable housing element would no longer necessarily involve Douglas City Council. It could involve any other housing body, and it would no longer necessarily be at the prices that have been in existence for what's called the shared equity purchase scheme. They would be at higher prices. That's quite a major change, coming on top of the key worker housing at the nurses' home, the second part of the Westmoreland Village project no longer being for key workers as we once understood. I just think we need to know what's going on, because it's not right for affordable housing policy to be made by Manx Development Corporation and a few ministers without the public and their representatives in the House of Keys and the rest of Tynwald being involved. And the second issue is to do with a changing perception in terms of parking and transport. The active travel policies haven't come to fruition. Bus routes haven't been changed. But we now know that people who are resident in the nurses' home part of Westmoreland Village can get residential parking permits, contrary to promises made by the former minister and to the public around that area.
And have you had any feedback on that or any part of this motion?
I think there are people who are concerned that I'm pushing the limits of what Tynwald's got the power, but I think that's the people who did want to make these decisions behind closed doors. Ultimately, elected politicians on behalf of the people they represent can bring any issue to Tynwald. My motion calls for the draft heads of terms to be delayed for approval. So government can ignore Tynwald's call if it wants to. And secondly, these are proposed heads of terms. It's not the actual legal agreement. And so therefore that's crucial. And what the public's got to remember is that I'm using the same form of words that government used back in March 2019 when it brought the heads of terms of the Sea Services Agreement to Tynwald for approval before they went out and negotiated the legal agreement itself.
Douglas Central MHK Chris Thomas talking to Christian. Now, a report would be brought forward for debate in July, that's next month, if this motion passes, and that will be happening when Tynwald sits tomorrow. You'll be able to hear that on our AM and DAB services. Now, it is time for this.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
And no reports of anything on the police pages, which is good news. But we do understand there are roadworks on the Newcastletown Road which are causing some delays. So just be aware if that's the way you're travelling home tonight. And also in Douglas, there are temporary lights on Alexandra Drive all this week. That's for gas work, 24 hours a day at the Woodlands Avenue Junction. All looking OK down at the airport this evening and at the steam packet as well. The Manxman due into Douglas around 6, heading out again at around about 7:45. And the Manannan due in about half an hour or so. Again, that'll be heading out to Liverpool again at 7:15.
Ask how you can spread the cost interest-free at Quayside.
It's coming up to 5:15. Now, police in Liverpool say it's seen a reduction in motorcycle thefts over the TT period. Over the racing fortnight, more than 6,000 bikes passed through the ferry terminal. Sian has the details on this one.
In a post on social media, Liverpool Police says it's seen a 100% reduction of motorcycle thefts in the city centre when compared to 2024, which stood at 5. In Anfield, there were 2 reported motorcycle thefts, which is a 66% reduction compared to last year, when officers were alerted to 6 thefts. A stolen car was located and recovered in the Rope Walks area of the city centre, and a scooter was seized after it failed to stop for traffic officers on Leeds Street. Liverpool Ports Police also arrested 1 motorist for drink driving near the Isle of Man ferry terminal. The results formed part of the partnership between departments in Liverpool, the Isle of Man Constabulary, car park providers and Lancashire Constabulary. Operation Needle was also implemented, which is made up of the City Centre and Walton Lane neighbourhood policing teams, which aim to prevent any thefts.
Sian reporting there. Now, the Isle of Man's blood transfusion service is said to be progressing towards compliance with blood safety and quality regulations. An external audit of the service has highlighted more than 20 items in a list of deficiencies, as Amy reports.
The review's been carried out by the Northern Ireland Blood Transfusion Service, which visited the island last year. It looks at the services provided by Manx Care at Westmoreland Road and the laboratories at Nobles Hospital to assess their quality, safety and effectiveness against the standards set out in the 2005 Blood Safety and Quality Regulations. Following the audit, it's recorded 23 items in a list of deficiencies, 3 of which are considered to be major. These included a lack of authorised standing operating procedures for the taking of blood from donors, a lack of privacy during confidential interviews, and weak incident management. In its conclusions, the NIBTS said while the site was considered to be progressing towards compliance, given the magnitude of the actions needed to be taken, achieving that will be dependent on the application of appropriate resource, knowledge of good practice being improved throughout the organisation, and a commitment to fully implement an appropriate quality management system. Manx Care says it's accepted all the findings of the audit and remains committed to improving both the hospital blood bank and blood establishment through its action plans. Around 1,700 people donate 1,250 units of blood on the Isle of Man each year through the blood transfusion service. It hopes implementing the recommendations will create a better patient and service user experience.
Amy Griffiths reporting. 5:17. The TT competitor Peter Hickman is thanking people for their ongoing support following his crash during qualifying at this year's races. In an update he posted on social media earlier today, the rider explains the extent of his injuries as well as what caused the incident at Carramore.
Sorry it's taken me a while to give you a little update on my condition, but here it is. It's been just over 2 weeks now since I had quite a fast crash at the Isle of Man TT 2025 on the Friday afternoon practice, which obviously wasn't part of the schedule for me at all. But condition-wise, I'm not too bad. I've got quite a lot of broken bones. So I've broken my left collarbone, my left scapula, so my shoulder blade down the back. I broke 3 ribs and 4 vertebrae in my back, so not ideal. But I just want to say a massive thanks to the marshals and medics that looked after me at the time. I don't remember much about it because I was knocked out. The first time I properly woke up in hospital. But yeah, just a massive thanks to marshals, medics, all the staff, the organisers, and of course all you guys back home, the fans. I've had lots and lots of messages about my condition and hoping that I'm well, so I just want to say thank you to everybody. I crashed at a place called Carramore. It's actually just after the Carramore left. Unfortunately it was a component failure, so it wasn't actually my fault, which the team are doing some more analysis on at the minute, but it wasn't the fairing like what was speculated about. It wasn't oil either. I know a lot of people thought they saw smoke. Unfortunately it was some bracketry that holds the exhaust in place. It didn't come loose, it broke in theory, and pushed the exhaust into the rear wheel and popped the rear tyre, which is not obviously ideal at all. But I've been going to the Isle of Man TT now for 10 years. This is the first major problem that I had. I'm going to touch wood somewhere. But yeah, you know, it's just one of them things. I want to thank the 810 Racing BMW team. They looked after me loads. It's none of the guys' fault at all that have been working on the bike. The bike had generally been faultless. Obviously it is a brand new bike to us. We've not done a lot of testing, and these things like this can happen sometimes.
That is Peter Hittman speaking on social media, and we wish him all the best for his continuing recovery. Coming up to 5:20. Well, we learnt late on Friday night that 3 people from the Isle of Man had been recognised in the 2025 King's Birthday Honours List, while a 4th, who comes from Peel originally but now lives in Northumberland, also received a BEM. Now, that was for Dr Stephen Quilliam's services to the community after he made a significant contribution to his village and deferred his own retirement during the COVID pandemic. The other Manx recipients were the Very Reverend Nigel Philip Godfrey MBE, John Watterson MBE and Karen Norton BEM. And Sir John Lorimer also gave a Lieutenant Governor's commendation to Bernard Moore, recognising over 40 years of voluntary service to Scouting. Well, we've been hearing from the recipients since the announcement, and here now is John Watterson, who told us the lovely news was very unexpected.
Totally out of the blue, to be honest. I had no idea about it until His Excellency contacted me a few weeks ago before the TT, so I've had to keep it quiet since then, but it's not been easy. But no, it's a great privilege, and I'm really honoured.
When you look back at your career, is there any highlights that maybe stick out to you as to why you've been given this award, or that you're just particularly proud of as well?
I think, to be fair, the one word you described my career is longevity. I think the fact that I was involved and still am involved in newspapers for 52 years now. Yeah, I always had that sort of goal for 50 years, in the last decade through the COVID years, and I thought, it'd be nice to finish at 50 years. And then I've been working part-time, but just last 3 weeks of the TT, I've been working full-time, and it's still great to be involved. I've seen many changes in the industry from when I started with hot metal and the old industry, and going through all that period, then in the early stages of the new wave of the industry, the new style of newspapers, and then, of course, digital age, really, that's the big change, in some respect detrimental to newspapers because we aren't as popular as we were, but it's still a great industry to be part of. And that's what I take away from it, is the people I've worked with and the people I've had the privilege to report on over the years, because, I've been very fortunate certainly in the last 30 odd years, is the sport has really taken off globally. But in the Isle of Man, it's an amazing now, the success that we have at the international level, which was never there before. And it's great to be a part of that, really.
That's a sports journalist, John Watterson, who's been recognised for his contribution to sport in the King's Birthday Honours List. He is now John Watterson MBE. He was talking there to Darren. Meanwhile, as I mentioned, the Dean of Peel Cathedral, the Very Reverend Nigel Godfrey, has also been made an MBE. That is for his service to the church and the island's community. But Reverend Godfrey says his work couldn't have been achieved without the skills of people on the island. And most recently, he's praised the volunteers behind the big table. This is a weekly lunch open to everyone, whatever their circumstances. And he says that their dedication of the volunteers is what keeps the project thriving. Manx Radio's religious correspondent Judith Lay has this report.
Well, an MBE for the Dean of the Cathedral, the Very Reverend Nigel Godfrey, wasn't the only excitement in Peel last week. The Big Table Cafe, that serves around 60 meals every Monday lunchtime in the Corrin Hall, scooped a brand new national award, the Newgate Cathedral Volunteer of the Year Award, launched for the first time this year to recognise the vital role that volunteers play in the life of cathedrals. Carol, a volunteer herself, was quick to pay tribute to the chef team.
3-course meal, and everything is from scratch. Those early morning volunteers, they're here at least 7 o'clock in the morning, so everything is fresh. This is where church happens for so many of us, where we sit down and we break bread together and we share stories and ask how you're doing, and we care for one another. I think that's the foundation of it.
Fenella Costain and Jan Cool are in the chef team.
It's nice to see people sitting together having a conversation, and people that haven't necessarily come together will come together round a table.
And we can't leave the big table without a word from the Dean MBE. You have said this award is all about the Big Table team, and it is.
Indeed, because they do a great job, and it's been recognised, so that's great. It was a bit of a risk. You think, well, is it even viable? Because it requires quite a lot of volunteers, and also it needed to pay for itself, and just about does.
And provides not just those meals on a Monday, but people can take some food away to help during the week.
They can, and I think that's quite a feature of it, really. Of course, Big Table will transfer into the cathedral as soon as we get the kitchens done.
And perhaps even more space for people to come in and enjoy their Monday lunch.
Indeed, yes.
Isn't that lovely? That's the Reverend Godfrey MBE talking to Judith Lay there. 24 minutes past 5. Sports time now with Rob. Good evening.
Good evening. Well, starting off, the Isle of Man women's football team made a strong statement ahead of the 2025 Ireland Games with an 8-0 friendly win over Kendal Town ladies at the weekend. Star of the show in front of goal for the Manx side was Chloe Tier, who managed a hat-trick. Meanwhile, all of the other 5 goals came through different players, with Rosabelle Cardy, Holly Sumner, Tia Lisi, Rebecca Cole and Lydia Shaw all on the score sheet. Well, last Saturday's contest is expected to be one of the final pieces of preparation Wayne Lisi's team will have ahead of this summer's Ireland Games in Orkney from the 12th to the 18th of July. Elsewhere, Isle of Man swimmers Laura Kinley and Heather McGowan have put in record-breaking performances during the 2025 British Masters Championship. Well, during the meeting at London Aquatic Centre from the 13th to the 15th of June, Kinley claimed a new long-course British record for the women's 50-metre breaststroke in the 25 to 29 age group of 32.89 seconds to both win the class and set a season best. Well, elsewhere in the same discipline, in the 45 to 49 age group race, McGowan finished 11th with her time of 43.22 seconds, setting a new Manx Masters record for that age bracket. Meanwhile, Kinley went on to contest 2 other categories. She also went on to win the 25 to 29 age group in the women's 100-metre breaststroke with a time of 1 minute 12.32 seconds, which was just over 6 seconds quicker than her nearest challenger. And Kinley's campaign was rounded out with the top 3 finish in the women's 50-metre freestyle, where she finished second in the 25 to 29 age group race, where her total time of 27.83 seconds saw her only lose out on top spot by 0.3 seconds to race winner Lucy Wheeler. Well, separately next month, Kinley will be part of the Isle of Man swimming squad taking part in the 2025 Ireland Games in Orkney. And in cricket, Manx player Lucy Barnett is taking part in the Vitality T20 Blast Leagues. The Ireland athlete has been representing Herefordshire in the Women's League 3 Division 2. It was a tough first day for them yesterday against Shropshire. In the first game, Barnett managed 14 runs off 11 balls and took 1 for 27 in the bowling stats. Her run rate drastically increased in game 2 as she managed 86 runs, which included 15 fours.
Thank you very much indeed, Rob. I'm just getting to grips, I think, with the rules of cricket since my middle child plays. It's quite, it's not as complicated as I thought it was.
It's a very tactical game that people might not see.
Yeah.
I think it's the best way I could put it.
Yeah. Are you a cricket player?
I'm not, no.
Are you a cricket watcher?
I do know a lot of people who do watch the cricket quite a lot, though, so hear a lot from them.
Yeah, and it's actually quite a nice way to while away a few hours on a summer afternoon, actually, so very pleasant. That is all from Update this evening. Coming up next, it is Agenda with Phil Gaughan, and tonight they're going to tackle the subject of minimum wage. At 6pm then, Chris Kinney will be here live with Greatest Hits. It's time for Brass with Ian Cottier from 9, and then Rianne is here with After Hours from 10. I think it's Rianne, it could be Dave, it'll be one of them. After Hours will be here from 10 anyway. Whatever you're doing this evening, have a good one, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow.